What finally spun it off?
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're examining 10 of the most dangerous inmates in the world.
What am I in jail for? People don't believe it. They think I'm a serial killer.
For this list, we'll be looking at some less than savory, still living criminals that you wouldn't want as cellmates. Which of these criminals is most disturbing? Let us know in the comments. Jason Barnum. Jason Barnum became known as Eyeball, and it's not hard to see why. Barnum's right eye is tattooed black, and he has an eyeball tattooed on his forehead. A serial burglar, Barnum was found hiding in a hotel in 2012 and opened fire on 2 police officers, wounding 1. He was subsequently arrested and sentenced to 22 years in prison in 2015. His charges included attempted murder, as well as car theft and burglary. He claimed to have been doing so to fund his addiction to illicit substances. If nothing else, the eyeball definitely has a distinctive look. Joseph James DeAngelo.
He was like a Hannibal Lecter, highly intelligent, highly sadistic, master manipulator.
Most recognized as the Golden State Killer, Joseph James DeAngelo is the perpetrator of an alarming amount of crimes. In fact, Golden State was the 9th pseudonym awarded to him by the media. Between 1974 and 1986, DeAngelo murdered 13 people, assaulted over 50 women, and committed around 120 burglaries.
And each new assault led to ever-increasing fear in thousands of family homes.
After 1986, the case went cold, and remained so for some time, until genetic genealogy and incriminating DNA evidence led to DeAngelo's 2018 arrest at the age of 72.
Police say the 72-year-old appeared surprised when they swarmed his home Tuesday evening.
No incident, he didn't say it wasn't me or anything like that?
No, really no conversation at all.
He was eventually charged with 13 counts of first-degree murder and 13 counts of kidnapping, all to which he pled guilty. DeAngelo was a police officer for a brief period in the 1970s, which is all the more disturbing. He is currently serving life without parole. Surinder Coley. Between 2005 and 2006, the city of Noida, India was subject to missing children cases which were greatly overlooked by local authorities, despite mounting pressure from parents. In 2006, Noida businessman Moninder Singh Pandare and his servant Surinder Coley were arrested on charges of murdering a sex worker. Upon digging for those remains, investigators found numerous younger remains as well. Coley confessed to multiple murders among other heinous actions. There were over 19 victims. Coley was sentenced to death on 13 counts of murder, a sentence which is still pending. It was determined by courts that Pandare wasn't involved in the murders, but he did get 7 years in prison for soliciting sex workers. Joanna Dennehy. In 2013, Joanna Dennehy stabbed 3 men to death in Cambridgeshire, England, and stabbed 2 more elsewhere who survived.
Joanna Dennehy is a woman that thrives on confrontation, and the natural follow-on for that is that she actually enjoyed the physical element of the violence that she inflicted on the men and the control she was able to inflict on these men.
The 3 murder victims were known to Dennehy, while the surviving 2 were completely random men walking their dogs.
Now, looking at the relationship that Joanna Dennehy had with her accomplices, I think she was able to charm these men. She was able to kind of lure them in, really, and they would have been flattered by her attentions,
All were premeditated attacks, and Dennehy had allegedly planned to commit 9 murders in total.
Again, it's this search for fame, this search for being different. Passion that she had was to try and become a famous killer.
While in custody, authorities found an escape plan Dennehy had written down, which involved cutting the finger off a wounded or murdered guard to open biometric scans on doors. She also made death threats to other prisoners, causing transfers.
She is dangerous and will be for a long period of time.
Charles Cullen. Medical professional serial killers are often referred to as angels of death or mercy. It's an odd nickname, as they're far from angels. In 1986, Charles Cullen graduated from nursing school. He worked at a number of New Jersey and Pennsylvania hospitals in his 16 years as a nurse. during which he administered lethal doses of various substances into multiple patients.
The medications he used were brutal medications, for instance, that are paralytics, that you cannot speak, you cannot breathe, you cannot fight back, you cannot blink.
He was finally arrested in 2003, and it was determined that he had officially killed 29 patients and possibly caused hundreds more deaths or complications. He was sentenced to 18 consecutive life sentences without parole. One of the reasons he gave for his action was the easing of patients' pain, but it was determined by one coworker that not all his victims were terminal.
Did you get the sense at Somerset, for example, that any of your colleagues, any of the nurses, any of the doctors knew what was going on?
No, I mean, until, the day I was fired, I mean, nobody gave me any indication that anybody was suspicious.
Robert Maudsley. British serial killer Robert Maudsley was charged with 3 counts of murder and 1 of manslaughter committed between 1974 and 1978. All 4 of his victims were alleged or incarcerated offenders themselves. His first victim was a man who solicited Maudsley. His second was a fellow patient at the Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital, and his last 2 were fellow inmates at Wakefield Prison. Maudsley claimed the only individuals who should fear him are sex offenders. In 1983, it was determined that Maudsley could not reside in the general prison population, and he was transferred to solitary confinement, in which he has been since. He attempted to appeal for some form of in-prison freedom in 2000, but was refused. David Berkowitz.
This was a terribly, pathetically lonely young man.
Known as the Son of Sam, David Berkowitz's crime spree started in 1975, when he stabbed 2 women in the Bronx in New York. Between then and 1977, Berkowitz killed a total of 6 people and wounded 11, during which time he sent ominous letters to the NYPD and a Daily News journalist. He referred to himself as the Son of Sam in the first letter. He's known for terrorizing the New York City area in the late 70s, as he eluded police despite his multiple attacks before finally being caught in 1977.
They expected a violent psychopath, but Berkowitz was calm and cooperative.
No.
When asked to identify himself, he smiled and said,
I'm Sam.
He pled guilty and was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences. While he's since become an evangelical Christian, it doesn't undo what he's done.
So you were not happy when you were doing this?
No. I just felt like a brainwashed robot.
Joaquin El Chapo Guzman.
He could be a colorful guy, but we shouldn't forget that he's a very violent guy.
To see all this chaos and all this destruction and death and come from this one guy, you go, oh my God.
Former drug lord and Sinaloa cartel leader Joaquin Guzman had been involved in cartels since the 1970s. After multiple captures and escapes, he was extradited to the U.S. in 2017 to serve out his sentence, eventually arriving at a supermax prison in Colorado.
Joaquin El Chapo Guzman led the Sinaloa cartel from a small trafficking outfit to one of the most profitable crime syndicates in the world. He was extradited to the United States in 2017 and sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years. But the Sinaloa cartel still dominates the North American drug market.
Known as El Chapo, Guzman's rap sheet is too long to list here, but it mostly contains drug trafficking, violence, and the use of hitmen to carry out hundreds of nefarious acts, money laundering, collusion with corrupt government officials, and so on.
He believed very strongly in a business model, and that business model included corrupting virtually every corner of the Mexican government.
He escaped in 2001, leading to a 13-year manhunt, only to escape again in 2015 and be recaptured in 2016. He was sentenced to life plus 30 years.
And it took longer than people thought, but frankly, this is the result that prosecutors and the FBI and the DEA had said they anticipated all along.
Charles Bronson. No, not that Charles Bronson.
You know, I wanted to come off Cat 8. I asked to go to a hostel because I didn't want to come back to prison.
This one is known for being a violent prisoner more than anything else. Michael Gordon Peterson was given the stage name of Charles Bronson after the American actor by a promoter during the criminal's short-lived bare-knuckle boxing career in 1987. Bronson had been getting into trouble since his adolescence, joining a group of robbers at 13 years old. He was arrested several times for anything from crashing a stolen truck to burglary to armed robbery. As of 1993, Bronson has remained in custody due to his crimes within the prison system. He was transferred a number of times for violence against fellow inmates and prison guards.
I can still do 95 press-ups in 30 seconds, so I'm still the governor, mate.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Dennis Rader. Dennis Rader is perhaps better known as the BTK killer.
In my mind, there was two people in that body. One of them was a husband and father, the Boy Scout leader. The other one was an absolute animal.
In the 17-year period between 1974 and 1991, Rader killed 10 people, consisting of 4 members of a family and 6 women. Much like the son of Sam, Rader sent letters and poems to the police and media.
BTK began today's letter with a question. How many do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national attention?
After his final murder in 1991, the BTK case went cold. It remained so until Dennis Rader resumed communication with media outlets in 2004. He even sent some packages, some of which contained bound dolls.
One of those boxes contained a floppy disk.
We got into the metadata and it showed that it had been typed on by a computer at a church in Park City. The name of the computer was registered to the name of Dennis.
Investigators found the church president was Dennis Rader.
Following these, some clever sleuthing led to his arrest in 2005. He is currently serving 10 consecutive life sentences.
He remains in solitary confinement where he will stay for the rest of his life.